How's it going, everyone? My name is Braydon. Some of you might recognize me from a previous talk or from pretending to study in the computer labs upstairs. I graduated in September, and I'm a full-stack developer at D2L. Started the day after I graduated. And I'm here to tell you about some of the what it's been like to work there and some of the open positions that we have. I don't really need to read. You guys can read a slide, or it's on a slide, but that's what we're going to talk about. Just a couple disclaimers before I start. Probably smart to talk about the fact that I'm not a hiring manager, so like I can't even like take resumes. I have no influence on the hiring process. So you can talk to me about what it's like, but I can't do anything for you about it. And also, I'm new to the company, so I don't know everything. If you have a really pressing question that you need answered later, you can follow up with me separately about it, but I probably won't know everything. And everybody asks me this, but I can't change your grades. I can't get your information. So this is D2L's flagship product, Brightspace, over 50 million users worldwide. And it started out designed for colleges and universities. And now every school in Ontario and a bunch in the US all use this product, but they've since expanded downwards in age and upwards in age, I like to say. They go all the way down to kindergarten, and now a bunch of corporations are using it for like security training and stuff like that. So a lot of users of a lot of different varieties. And most of you likely already know this, but Laurier, My Learning Space, is just a rebranded Brightspace. Different clients will take it and rebrand it as different things. So Conestoga, Guelph, Waterloo, all these different schools have different brands, but it's all the same product. So if you want to dish about My Learning Space, you can talk to the Waterloo kids about it. This is John Baker, CEO of D2L. He formed the company in 1999 as his co-op project, actually. He was a systems engineer major. 20 years ago, he wanted to transform the way the world learns. I'm supposed to say all this stuff. I'm just regurgitating the 20th anniversary event I went to. But yeah, the company has now expanded to over 850 employees worldwide. We have lots of different locations. I work in the Kitchener headquarters, pictured up there, the tannery, which you may recognize from downtown Kitchener. But they also have a bunch of offices in Canada, all across Canada, in London, in Melbourne, and they also heavily believe in remote work. So we have people in, I think, in almost every continent, not Antarctica, but like the rest of them. So yeah, lots of employees. Not the biggest company in the world, but it's big. There's a lot of people. It's very unlikely you would ever meet even close to everyone in the company. So, talk a little bit about the technology we use at D2L. This is the kind of thing that I'm always interested in when I hear about a new company. I sort of see it as like three pillars of technology that for three different parts of the company. The first one is the .NET, the C# language, which some of you might have used before, maybe if you've done Unity or something. And that makes up the majority of the product. The majority of the product is one giant C# monolith. So anything that you're doing on the actual Brightspace product would be in C#. But on the right side there, we also have a lot of efforts to sort of decouple our front ends, write microservices, serverless applications, and that's all done through Node.js. This logo here, some of you might not recognize, this is the Polymer logo, which is a relatively new framework by Google for writing standard web components, sort of meant as a competitor to React. And if you want to learn more about that, you can come talk to me after about why we end up going that direction. But web components are super cool. That's what matters. And in the center, supporting both of those efforts is AWS. We recently completed a big effort to move all of our clients to be running off AWS. So all of our clients now are running on AWS, Laurier included. And we also use AWS for some of our microservicing efforts through AWS Lambda and DynamoDB, fortunately. And we also have a lot of infrastructure as code stuff, a lot of DevOps. All the DevOps is done through AWS using things like Terraform, Docker, a bunch of other stuff that I haven't delved into yet because I'm not on a DevOps team. But if you want to learn more about any of this stuff or have any deeper questions, you can come talk to me about it after. The majority of the teams are kind of made up of two different styles. The first style is like a back-end team. Jacob, who's sitting here, he's a coworker of mine. He works on a back-end team. What's it like, Jacob? What are you working on?
Oh, you know, all the stuff.
I'm putting you right on the spot, so.
Yeah, so I actually do a lot of DevOps kind of things, which is neat because prior to this job, I had never even heard of Terraform, and now I'm writing it, and I'm supposed to understand what it does, and I kind of do. For the most part, the last few months, I've been working on a specific web protocol project. Backend is kind of interesting that the deadlines aren't usually as strict, and a lot of the things I work on don't affect any of you in any noticeable way. The idea of most of my work is essentially take current things and make them better, or make tools that will allow the company to do more. And a lot of that is great because I'm saving the company a crap load of money, and then everybody gets bigger bonuses, ideally. Yeah, that's all I have to say for back end right now. If you've got specific questions, you can ask me after.
I'm on currently a full stack team, and the full stack team is basically working on the product and all the customer facing features. Usually you might be used to hearing about the back end people and the front end people. D2L structures it a little differently in that if you're working on the product, you're kind of expected to know the full stack so that you're not stranded in any one part of it. So I've been doing a lot of front end. I'd say probably 70% of my work is front end using Polymer that I discussed before, but also some C# on the back end stuff. I'm transitioning into back end soon, that'll be cool, but these are sort of the two different types of teams that you would experience if you were thinking about applying. There's also mobile. I don't know anything about mobile, but Pulse is cool. You should use it if you're not. It's great to get a notification saying you failed on your phone. A little bit about my experience, which I started talking about last slide because I broke my order. I got hired within my last month of my final semester of school. Very stressful finding a job, but I luckily got hired at D2L, and I'm very happy about it. It's been really good because I've been doing a lot of different stuff, even in just the 5 months that I've been there. Right now, I'm mostly working full stack on a certain product, but I've also been doing a lot of work with web components and standardizing a lot of our decoupled UI features, and that's been a lot of fun. They don't treat me like a new grad, which is really exciting and really different. It's been a really different experience learning to be a permanent member of a team instead of someone who's only there for 4 months and then moving on. And I think my favorite thing about working there is their passion for professional development. We have professional development days where we get to pick something that we want to learn, and sometimes they'll even expense a course or a book for us to learn something that we're interested in that will help advance our careers. And I really like that, and I hope other companies are doing the same thing because it's really awesome. I have a couple quotes of people who talked about liking it. I didn't realize how small the font was going to be on the projector, but most of it is saying that it's really rewarding to be at such a welcoming engineering culture. I think that's my favorite thing about the engineering culture. If you've ever looked at, or especially if you've asked a question on Stack Overflow, you might get a bit of a stereotype of engineers being kind of stingy and not very welcoming, and that's totally the opposite experience that I'm having at D2L. If you have any kind of crazy question, even if it seems stupid, usually they'll answer it and explain stuff for you, and that's been really helpful as a new grad employer. Every job comes with its challenges. I think D2Ls have been relatively small, or at least in my experience, but the biggest one is definitely that the code base is really, really large. The C# monolith, I asked them this on this Slack channel, and it led to this massive debate about how we would actually even get like a lines of code statistic, but 7 million plus lines is the closest I could come to any hard number, and that barely even means anything. But it's just completely massive. There's so much to learn that in like 5 years, I don't think I could possibly learn everything that's going on in our code base. It's pretty absurd, and that's why so many different teams are specializing in so much stuff. I'm jumping around a lot, but some teams are very specifically on one product, and they learn a lot about that. So at least it's easy enough to know who to talk to about something, but to feel like you're actually learning everything is basically impossible, and that's been a big adjustment for me. As well with learning to work with a team. Who here has had a co-op so far? Anybody? Okay, not too many, and I'm guessing there are some people who are in co-op or like about to go into the first co-op. And not to discourage you, of course, but be ready for the experience that a lot of teams, if you're only there for 4 months, they can't really integrate you too deeply into the team. It's just the way it is, unfortunately. So I'm used to joining a team, doing some small stuff for them, and then leaving. And it's been a really different experience for me to learn that I'm here for good, and I need to fill out a certain role that I'm not used to, really heavily collaborating with the rest of the team. So that's been a big thing to learn, and Windows. Let's talk a little bit about co-op. There's sort of two different types of open positions that I'm going to be talking to you about right now. First one is co-op. How many of you are in third or fourth year? Okay, not as many as I would have expected, actually. D2L really likes to hire upper year co-ops, and this is mostly because when they hire a co-op, they sort of are trying to turn them into full-time employees later, and a lot of other companies share that philosophy. This is the picture of the day that I started. About half of these people are all co-ops because I started the same day as all the co-ops started last term. And I spoke with a few of them about their co-op experience, and I was pretty good buds with the guy right next to me there. And the stuff that they got to do is really different than most co-ops. After a couple weeks of training and sort of getting used to stuff, they were working on the real product. And D2L isn't the only company that does that, but it is a little bit less common. Oftentimes co-ops will be working on side projects or side efforts that the team may eventually pick up after they've done like the investigation work or something. But at D2L, you're not thrown to the wolves. I can't think of a better term for it, but you are thrown into the product, and you're getting real valuable experience, in my opinion. So I think it's really awesome being co-op at D2L. I was not a co-op at D2L, but I've watched what other people are doing. The new grad rotation, is anybody here graduating soon, like next term or term after? Just Jake, you should apply. The new grad rotation is a program where you are hired on as a normal full-time employee, benefits, salary, all that stuff, except the difference is that every 6 months you change teams. And this is really exciting because you get to experience a bunch of different stuff every 6 months to eventually find your passion, and sort of, after that you sort of stay on, you pick what team you like the most and you stay on as the full-time employee there. The biggest, hardest thing once you graduate and you get your first few jobs is just learning what you like the most and what you're best at. And instead of needing to jump around jobs to find that out, at D2L you can just change teams for a couple of years until you find the thing that you know you're best at. It's a very competitive program. Apparently they're getting close to 800 applicants for this round, which, yeah, it's tough. But don't let that discourage you from applying. If you are an upper year student looking for a co-op, or if you're someone about to graduate within the next 2 terms, definitely consider applying. Yes?
We're graduating like third and fourth year?
Third, fourth year, yes. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, third and fourth year co-ops. If you are looking for your first or second co-op term, don't be afraid to apply anyway. Just don't get too discouraged if you don't hear back. It's just, they get a lot of applicants. They have hired first and second year co-ops before, so don't let that discourage you from applying. But they are looking for upper year co-ops especially. I think that's everything I have to say. I'm willing to take questions, and I'll be hanging out for a bit after if anybody has anything they want to ask me, not in front of a crowd. So anyways, thank you so much. Any questions?
What is your favorite programming language?
This is a tough question, actually. Not C# or JavaScript that I write at work.
Not C#?
I don't mind C#. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. As a language, it's fine. I just don't like the giant object-oriented monolith that it ends up becoming. I don't know. It's okay. I really like Crystal. It's a new trendy nerd programming language. It's cool. In the back.
You know how you said you had that new language that was like the competitor to React?
Yeah.
So that would mean, like, since it's new, you wouldn't have much experience with it. How would you cover like those kinds of cases where there's like a lot of things that you don't know, like on your resume or like in an interview if they like ask about it, like how you like have skills, or like would they like pretty much always like teach you like that kind of stuff, and they just want you like the core skills?
Yeah. So on my resume, I had C# on my resume, so that was helpful. But I had nothing close to Polymer. I had Vue, I think. But really, they're not. A lot of D2L and a lot of other companies aren't looking for like the exact stack that they're hiring for. A lot of times they're looking for something equivalent. So anybody who had like React or any kind of front-end development experience on their resume, they would probably consider that equivalent. So if you're sort of like trying to find a strategy of like covering the most stuff on your resume, I would usually just pick, like you pick React if you're just looking for something to learn for front-end. It's usually pretty good, and D2L it won't really negatively affect your resume if you don't have the exact stuff they're looking for. It will only positively affect it if you have it, but like, yeah, it won't be negative. It just might be positive if it's there.
Why do you guys not use React?
Yeah, so the reason we don't use React, we do have some React in the code base. We originally went for a solution that we called free range apps. I'm not allowed to say everything about how this all works, but basically they were packaging front-end apps. It's like single page apps that were then loaded by the main product. And some people did choose to do React for their little isolated apps. The reason they didn't stick with it is partially because React loads a lot of JavaScript on your browser, and it was really affecting the performance of those pages on Whitespace. And the other reason is that there just ended up being a lot of tech divergence. So like all these different teams were doing like React, Vue, Angular, like all kinds of different stuff, their own custom solutions. And so they eventually decided to unify around one solution, and their best idea for that was around web components, which I highly recommend reading about. But it's basically a way of standardizing the kind of UI that React lets you build, like different controlled components. And Polymer and Lit Element, which is also on the screen that I forgot to mention, let you build web components in a React, very similar to React way. And so that's why they ended up standardizing around that.
What kind of questions were you asked during your interview?
So I had, for full-time employees, and this will be for the new grad rotation too, there's 3 interviews. First is a HR phone screen, just to make sure you're not a complete moron. Second would be, there was a phone screening, which was a single 2-question technical review. Sorry, I'm not allowed to say everything, but the two different types of questions that you're asked are code review questions. So they'll give you like a block of code, and you go and review it, and you try and say like what's wrong with it. It's like code that's like technically right, but not pretty, and they're just trying to see what your thinking is when you're reviewing a piece of code. And then they'll ask technical questions, usually not super difficult, and it'll just usually be a simple algorithm answer. And what they're really looking for is they're looking for how you think through the question and how you solve it. But usually they're not terribly complex.
How much stuff do you learn like on your own outside of school?
A lot. A lot of the stuff that you end up doing at your first full-time job is nothing like the stuff you learn at school, and I hate to come into a school and say that. But yeah, I did end up having to learn a lot on my own to learn skills that were more applicable. The best way to learn that sort of thing, in my opinion, is just to build something, just build a project, and even if it's just a mishmash of Stack Overflow and random blog posts. But getting something together is the best way to learn that sort of thing, and that's sort of the way I tried to learn the applicable skills before I started entering the workflow.
Yeah. What are some like good projects that you do by yourself?
the default answer I always give is to write a forum, but just like a forum clone website. I find that it gives you a lot of the fundamentals that you need in terms of building a web application. More importantly than what the app does, I would more think about like what technologies you're using to build it. I gave a talk last term in like October or November about Ruby on Rails, and that's a good first choice. Just go through some of like the Ruby on some of the Ruby on Rails tutorials. In general, it's not super important what the project does, but more that you're building something coherent. Yep.
What language did you use to make like these forms and stuff like that?
So I tried a little bit of Node.js stuff, because the most popular language hired in the city and in the country and in all over the world right now is JavaScript. So like if you're ever not sure, I usually say like a Node.js using the Express and React frameworks for the backend and frontend respectively, or learning Ruby on Rails, because you can learn a lot of fundamentals about web development through that framework. My favorite, and the one I built my first, I say forum because I built one, and I thought it was good. I used Laravel, which is a PHP framework, and Vue as the front-end framework. Yep.
Can you take us through an average day working at D2L?
Sure. So the average day is I go to Tim's first, and then after, once I go in, we structure our work in what's called sprints, which is from the agile methodology of structuring a team. You might, is anybody taking 317, CP 317, or is in it? You might learn about it in that course. I don't remember, actually. If David Brown's still teaching it, he'll teach you that. But anyways, we basically block out a set of work that we're doing on our project every 2 weeks, and we estimate each of the stories, they're called, they're just tasks, each of the stories to a certain amount of points as like how much effort they're going to take, and we structure out 2 weeks that way. We call it a sprint. And every day, I go in, we have a stand-up meeting where we talk about what we've been working on and what we're planning to do for the day. And we try as a team to finish the sprint by the end of the 2 weeks. So my average day is going in, opening up our software that we use for project tracking, figuring out what I'm working on for the day, making sure I tell my team what I'm doing and asking them for help if I need it, and doing the task as best I can. Some other sort of side tasks is often other members of the team will put up pull requests. If you ever used Git before, you'll learn about pull requests. I highly recommend learning it if you haven't. But they'll push up their changes and they'll ask other members of the team to review it. So I do a lot of code reviewing as well. And then there's the other stuff like the meetings. Sometimes there's professional development where I picked a course that I'm just going through. That's the gist of it, really. Yeah.
What are some professional development courses?
I had just finished one. It's really like dumb concept, but it was really helpful, which is called Flexbox Zombies. It's basically, if you've ever used CSS before, there's a construct called Flexbox, which is basically a way to style different blocks on your web page to fit into whatever size container they are, and it's mostly for when you're resizing a browser, the blocks will automatically move to fill out whatever space is there. And it was a free course to learn how those work and learn how to align items that way. It's really helpful. And right now I'm going through something called A Cloud Guru, which is another free course on AWS, because we're moving to an AWS project soon, so I gotta get up to speed on that. So those are the two big ones that I highly recommend if you are looking for something new. Yep.
What's your favorite Linux distro?
Fedora.
Fedora?
Yeah.
Alright.
Anything's better than Windows, really.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious about what company culture is like at D2L, other than the whole professionalism focus and like the whole rotation thing. Other than that, what would you say are some star features that D2L has that makes the culture great?
So one thing I did forget to mention in my presentation, I had it written in my notes, I didn't say it, I don't know why not. But the one big thing I love about writing software at D2L is that even though we're a really big company, it's stereotypical of a big company to get sort of held back in terms of the technology that they're using. They'll use stuff that they've been using for 10 years, trying to test it, you know, all that stuff, but it's usually really hard to work with. Whereas at D2L, we are working really hard to always be on the cutting edge of what we're doing. So I don't ever feel like I'm missing out on the cool new way of doing things. Like the Polymer and Lit Element frameworks that we use for building UIs are brand new. Like they came out late 2016, I think, and we're using them at work, which is really cool for such a large company to always be ahead of the curve like that. So I think that's my favorite thing about the engineering.
Can you work remotely, like say, go on vacation in Mexico and be able to like VPN in and work on something?
So D2L does really believe in remote work. We have some fully remote employees, and I work from home every once in a while. Like they fully support that. See you later. Thanks for coming. That sort of thing probably would be possible. You'd have to work it out with your manager, but if you wanted to go away for a few weeks and still be working, you would still be expected to be within the core hours. So like, if you're in a weird time zone, you still gotta kind of be in the 8 to 5 kind of EST. You gotta be online for those hours. But that sort of thing is not out of the question. Anything else? All right, thanks so much for coming, everyone. If you want to come say hi after, feel free to. My name's it's just Braydon in the Discord if you need to get a hold of me. Thanks everyone for coming. I've got stickers up front if you want.
Yeah, so there's free stickers. We're also hosting another event soon with is it DevOps?
Yeah.
Somebody from yeah, you can explain it.
Yeah, so